The video today will talk about command line, which is something that we don't emphasize that much in the business college, but is commonly used in the engineering programs as well as in computer science. So I want to show you how to do this. I'm going to flip over here to a presentation. Command line is incredibly important, and it's something that I take for granted because I came up through command line. Believe it or not, Windows did not exist when I started learning how to program. And Windows actually was an application back then. And to start Windows, you typed Windows from the command line to actually execute it. It was called a graphical interface. It wasn't really an operating system like it is now. It was only at Windows 95 that it really became an official operating system. Command line is still used, believe it or not. It's used in a variety of development environments and company applications. And I see it quite a bit in organizations where you have to actually use older applications. Command line is very, very common. Believe it or not, it can actually be faster to use command line. If you have ever tried to explain to someone how to do something on a computer over the phone, you know how frustrating it is to use a graphical interface. But it is a lot easier just to say, go to the command line and type this in. And it will actually be a lot easier to do because it's simply a command that they can type in. There are more things that you can do with the command line. For example, if you want to rename everything that begins with the letter R, you have to do that manually through the graphical interface. You could do it in one line with the command line. So there's a lot of features with command line, and it's a good thing to know. Now, there are some slight differences. Windows, by the way, kind of adopted back in the 70s and 80s Unix, and Linux, of course, is largely based on Unix. So the command line for Windows is very, very similar to Mac. Fortunately, there are a few differences. That's not a mistake because, like I said, they did try to keep it as consistent as possible. Consistent with what I've been saying all along, don't use uppercase letters unless the name of the file or the folder that you're addressing contains uppercase letters. Command line does tend to be case sensitive. Mac is Linux-based. Windows is MS-DOS based. This goes back quite a ways. And the Mac OS uses a / to delimit folders. By the way, when you hear on radio commercials or on TV, it drives me crazy when they'll say http:// or they'll use / in a web address. There are no backslashes in the internet, but the Windows command line is probably the only one that commonly uses backslashes, which you see here on the screen. So Mac OS Linux-based uses a / or just a slash, and the Mac MS-DOS uses a backslash. So there is another difference in terms of looking at the contents of a folder. Within the Mac OS, you use ls, which is for list, and the MS-DOS uses dir, which is, of course, for directory. But other than that, they're pretty similar. With Django, we're going to use command line a lot with Django, and so most of the commands rely on this manage.py utility, which is the main utility file. But to create a Django project, you don't use use manage.py, you use Django admin, which is an executable file, so you don't put .py after it. So it's Django-admin start project, and then whatever you want to name your project. So for example, HW1. The brackets on either side of project name there is just meant to indicate that you replace the project name with whatever it is you want to call it. To create a Django app within a project, which we haven't done yet, but we will in a future video, you use Python manage.py. Now when you're using manage.py, you have to put Python in front of it. Manage.py is written in Python, so you have to tell it to execute using Python. So Python, manage.py, start app, and then the app name. And by the way, you do need to be in the root folder when you do this, when you're creating an app. But like I said, we will cover this in a future video. To run a web server, which you will do all the time, this is probably the most common command line you will enter. You're going to say Python manage.py run server. That'll execute Django's built-in web server. And to make migrations are used whenever you want to make a change to your database. You're going to say Python manage.py make migrations. Now that does not actually execute the migrations. It simply generates the file for the migrations. To execute the migrations, then you have to say Python manage.py migrate. All right, so that is it for some of the commands that we're going to be using. Now, I have already started up, to save us a little bit of time, I've already started up the VS Code here, and I have added over here to the right a graphical representation of what we're going to be navigating today. The top folder is our project folder, that's MISY 350, and I have two projects. I have HW1 project and HW2 project. Inside of those, I have my root folders, which we've talked about, HW1 root, HW2 root. And inside that is the default application, HW1 in the case of the HW1 project and HW2 in the case of HW2 root. All of your projects should follow this convention, as I've mentioned to you. You know, by the way, that HW1 is a folder because of this little arrow to the left of it. That indicates that it is a folder and contains files, or contains something, possibly another folder. The db.sqlite3 is a file, and manage.py is a file. Notice that db.sqlite is in HW1 root. It is not in HW1. It is in HW1 underscore root. Manage.py is also in HW1 underscore root. All your projects will have the same general structure as we've talked about. Now, if I go up here to the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you'll notice again this arrow indicates that HW1 contains something. If I click that, you'll see that it does contain quite a few files here, but those files are in HW1. The DB SQLite3 is not in HW1. It is in HW1 root. So hopefully that all makes sense. Now I'm going to start at the top. So I'm going to click in the MISY 350 folder, right click and say Open in Integrated Terminal. Now, by the way, you can do this directly in the operating system. You can access the integrated terminal. In a Mac, you would just go to your applications and execute terminal. In a PC, you can go to the start menu and then type in CMD, and that'll create a command window. We're doing exactly the same thing. It's just that this is an integrated terminal. It makes it a little bit easier because you're right within the environment. So I'm going to now go into the MISY 350 environment. I don't think technically that's required for this exercise, but let's go ahead and do that. It's good practice. And I am at the top. If I say ls, and in Windows, of course, you would actually say dir, but if you're in ls, if you say ls, then you're actually listing the contents. And you can see, I'll probably edit that out. You can see that the contents of that folder is HW1 project, HW2 project. And if I open this up, you can see that if I close these folders, you can see that that's what MISY 350 contains. It contains HW1 project, HW2 project. If I say CD, CD stands for, and by the way, with LS, with Windows, you would change that to dir. You would not use LS, you'd use dir. With CD, I can say HW1 underscore project. And that will bring me to inside of the HW1 project folder. If I then say ls or dir if you're in Windows, you'll see that I can open that up now, and it will show me that the contents of that is HW1 root. I can then say, and watch this now, this is really kind of cool. I can say cd, get back to the command line, cd space. If I type H, nobody in command line types everything out unless you have to. So if I type the first letter, and that first letter is unique, and there's only one thing in the folder, so it is unique, I can hit tab, and it will auto replace everything for me and fill in the rest for me. So now I am actually in the HW1 root folder. And if I say ls, you can see that I have those utilities. And if I open this up, you can see that it does contain actually HW1, and it also contains DB3. Now, I don't actually have to go into a folder to see its contents. I could say, for example, ls, and again, dir if you're in Windows, and I could say HW1, and that will tell me the contents without moving me there. You'll notice that the command, and this is true in Windows as well, the command line shows me, it tells me the name of the computer, and it also tells me what folder I am in. Okay, so this tells me that I'm in HW1 root. Notice I did not go into HW1, I just said give me the contents of HW1. If I want to go in there, I can say cd and then say HW1, and that will change the directory now. And now I'm in there, that directory. You can see it in the command here. And if I say ls, it will give me the contents. And if I open that folder up here, you can see that is indeed the case. So I hope you're following along here. That's one of the reasons I put this graphic up here so that you can see this as well. Now we're at the very bottom. How do I get back up? Well, there are reserved characters, and in Linux and in Mac, in Windows, use the same character to move up. CD, by the way, if you say CD dot refers to the current directory. So if you say CD dot, that is the same thing as saying change directory to the current directory. So that does nothing. It doesn't move you anywhere. It's a legitimate command. It just doesn't mean anything. But dot is commonly used. You could say, for example, copy everything to the current directory. You would you'd use dot to indicate the current directory. But CD dot doesn't really do much. But CD dot refers to the directory immediately above. If I do that, I am now moved up one, and you'll notice the command line indicates that I'm no longer in HW1, I'm in HW1 root. So I have moved, in effect, up one level. Now you can move up multiple levels at a time by simply saying cd ... /... Now in Windows you have to use the backslash, but I can say ... /... That will move me up 2 levels, and now I'm back up to the 350 level. Now on a Linux machine, the slash refers to root. That is the root of your computer. If you do this, you will end up way up there. So if you do this, it will move you there, and you'll notice now this indicates the slash indicates that you are now at the root. And if I say ls, you're at the very top of your structure. You're like probably 4 or 5 levels above now where you were before, because you've moved to the very top. At this point, if you make that mistake, it's probably best. You could simply navigate down, but you'll need to know how to navigate down. I could say, for example, cd users, and that brings me down. I say ls. Serva m is the current. I can say serva m. That brings me down. I say ls. And now I need to know I need to go to Dropbox, so I can say cd, and I can say dr tab, and that'll bring me to Dropbox because there is nothing else that begins with dr. And that brings me down ls. And it's Office files, so I'm going to say cd o tab. And you'll notice I have multiple things now that begin with O, so I have to say OF tab. And you'll notice that in Linux, they delimitate a space by putting a backslash in front of the space. That's because a space can be used to separate parts of a command in command line. So you have to put a backslash in front of the space to indicate. I believe it's the same in Windows as well. So if I do that now I'm down one level, ls again, and now I have to get to teaching, so I say cdt and say ls. You can see that it takes a while, and if I want to actually get down to where the class is, I say cd misy350, that scrolled off the screen, and again ls, and then cd. And you'll see I have a pretty deep structure here. So it's spring /space 2021, and now I'm back to where I started. So now I'm actually in the folder above where we were before. The other thing you could do, by the way, is just simply do this. Close the folder, go up here, and say / open an integrated terminal. That's probably the easiest way to get back to where we were before, okay, other than doing all that navigation. And I'm going to now activate my environment again just to make sure I'm consistent with you. All right. Now, once you're in a folder, let's go down, for example, cd hw1, and now I'm in the project. Suppose I want to actually go from here. I'm currently in this folder, and I want to go to this folder. But the problem is I can't go directly from HW1 root, for example, or HW1 project rather, to HW2 project, because these are at the same level. These are at the same level. HW1 project is at the same level as HW2 project. In effect, what I have to do is go up and then down again. I have to go up to 350 and back down. Now I could issue 2 commands, but I could also do this. I could say cd ... which goes up 1 level, /HW2, and then hit tab, and it will tell me that once I move up 1 level, I can go there. And so I can go directly from HW1 project to HW2 project by using the ... and delimiting it with a slash. Okay. So I hope that helps. We're going to be doing a lot of command line stuff with Django, and being able to navigate around directories is extremely important, and knowing where you are in a particular directory is extremely important. Like anything with this, you only get better with this with practice. So please take some time to do some navigation, play around, navigate around your computer, and make sure you understand where all your files are located. Take care. See you in class.